welcome back to another episode of Simulation. This is that girl Connor, and today we're going to talk about something I'm very excited to talk about. And if you've been talking to me in my personal life the last few days, you know that I feel very strongly about it, and it is the Love is Blind reunion. So settle in because I have a lot to discuss. So first things first, I hope you guys all like this embroidery because I'm actually about to switch it out for another one that I made. I just haven't published all the videos with this one in the background, but hope you guys enjoy it. And if you guys are not following my embroidery Instagram, it's embroidery_by_Connor. Please go ahead and follow it. The first thing we have to do, of course, is talk about tea and mug of the day. And today is something very special because earlier today, I went to the thrift store, which is one of my favorite places to go here in Maryland. 2nd Ave in Columbia is the tits, man. So I got this very cute, like traditional tea, well, like little tea mug with all these beautiful motifs on it. I feel like it's probably very loud. Can you guys see? And this little teapot. Now I have a bunch of these actually because I love little teapots, but this one was so cute and I distinctively remember being like, that would be so cute for a video. So I have zero self-control and I immediately used it. The kitty cat has been in rare form the past few weeks, so that's where we're at with her. The tea I have today is actually a tea from David's Tea. It's nutty and spice. It's a oolong tea. Because I had gotten like a set of these for Christmas one year and I still had them, and this is the last one left, and I actually really like this one. So I'm gonna pour it. It is a loose leaf tea, and this actually has like little spout to stop it, so no major chunks come, and it's a kind of a bigger tea. So it's probably very hot, and it is August, so I don't really want to drink a ton of it. So we'll save first sip for a moment. It smells really good. It's like I've had it before, obviously, because I own it. But so I want to talk to you guys today about the Love is Blind reunion. I talked a little bit in my, like, I guess my potpourri episode that I did, is that like I want to make other content. I love anti-MLM stuff, but YouTube should be fun, and so content that I want to talk about is the content that I'm going to make. And I have a lot of feelings about the Love is Blind reunion, and it's just who I am as a person. So if you were living under a rock, or if for some reason this video is showcased in like an 11th grade history class, I'm going to put you guys in the mindset of early 2020. So we can understand what Love is Blind is and how it affected the world so drastically. So for those of you who don't know, and I don't want anybody to go back into this point in time if it's really hard for them, but at the start of the pandemic, at the start of March 2020, before people were able to take the pandemic and politicize it and make it kind of this, make themselves and this movement as like kind of martyrs for government control and like freedom and all the bullshit people came up with, people were fearful. And fearful that you probably don't get to feel very much as an adult. Fearful in the sense that you have zero control. As an adult and as humans, I think a lot of our lives are surrounded with trying to figure out what parts of life we can control and really holding on to that. Before you're an adult, a lot of your life is out of your control, but it is organized, hopefully by somebody, by school, by parents, by activities. You have a plan, and then you graduate college and it's like nobody's there telling you how to do life or what to do or what the next steps are. And that's why I think your 20s can feel like such a whirlwind. But you come up with a plan and you work on your plan and you work on a system and you feel like you've regained some kind of control. But the pandemic made everybody feel scared and fearful that you're not going to feel often. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what the future holds. And the people that you look to for answers also don't seem to know what the future holds. And this, like I said, this was before we were able, like before the pandemic became extremely politicized. And I think part of the extreme politicization and the extreme denial and the extreme kind of rejection of the pandemic came with a lot of people trying to regain control and deciding that it was easier to deny that it was real or as bad as it was, so they didn't have to feel that fear. Sorry, I like see something on my head and I can't tell if it's like, okay. so they don't have to deal with it. It was a way to not deal with the fear that we were all feeling. But in that time, when we first all went into lockdown, when people were unsure, when people were able to like express their unknowingness and just really bond in that, 2 TV shows came out on Netflix. And Netflix was a great way to escape. The 2 shows that I think benefited greatly from when the pandemic happened at the start of lockdown was Love is Blind and Tiger King. You get kind of like a heavier docu-series with Tiger King with a little bit of comedy thrown in, and you get trash kind of dating TV masquerading as a social experiment in Love is Blind, the 2 genders, if I will. So Love is Blind, and again, if you know this, you know this. Love is Blind was presented as a social experiment by Nick Lachey and Vanessa Lachey, his wife, talking to hot singles in the Atlanta or like the Chicago area, casted by Netflix, where they would have to date each other in pods where they can't see each other. So there is no kind of physicality, there's no kind of physical intimacy, and there's being attracted to somebody because they're hot. You're supposedly getting to know somebody actually. Now, the only way to get out of the pods with the person that you think that you might want to actually date is to propose marriage to them. And then I forget what it is, but you have like a set amount of time. Maybe it's like a month or 6 weeks or something like that. You have like a set amount of time before you have to go to the altar. And at the altar, you have to say if you want to be married or if you don't want to be married. And that's like in the contract. Okay, and let me tell you, for obvious reasons, this show took the world by storm. There was villains, there was love triangles, there was obvious, like, these are the couples. And again, we're at a point in time where, like, this is something to talk about that isn't the pandemic, that is so scary. And I don't even know how to talk about that. And I don't even know, because now, you know, the Republicans are really taking it and making it this big political thing. And it's like, I can't even talk about that. So let me talk about Jessica and Mark and Barnett. Oh my God, the love triangle of the century. So I'm not going to talk to you about the actual, like, what happened. I want to talk about the reunion show that was released on Netflix, I think maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's 3 episodes centered around the 2nd anniversary party. So for those of you who don't know, and again, moving forward, there are 6 couples that make it out of the pods. So there had to have been, like, I honestly want to say like 30 people to start, but the people who make it out of the pods together as couples that are engaged are Amber and Matt, who we call Barnett. So that's his last name. Damien and G, Mark and Jessica, Diamond and Carlton, Kenny and Kelly, and Cameron and Lauren. So I think it's easier just to go through each couple and then we can talk about them. So we're first going to talk about Diamond and Carlton because I have a major gripe with the show. In the show, Carlton and Diamond didn't even make it past like the reunion, the night where everybody came together in Mexico. They didn't make it off the resort because Carlton revealed to Diamond that he identifies as a bisexual man, and she broke off the engagement and said some incredibly biphobic things. Which is, I'm not here to condemn Lauren, Diamond. What I actually want to do is condemn the show. Because the show really sells it like we should all be on Diamond's side. And this is my first gripe with the show. You have set up, and her whole thing was, we're about to be married, you didn't tell me this. Now, as somebody who identifies queer as myself, I identify as a bi woman, I have never dated in a relationship after I've been out to somebody who didn't know that I have dated women in the past. But it is something that I would tell my partner, but maybe not right away. But I don't feel the need to disclose it. I would just feel hurt if I had been dating somebody for like 2 years and they hid that whole part of themselves with me because they felt like they couldn't tell me. However, especially a bi man, you have to feel safe in a relationship and like you feel like you guys can be together and just anybody. You have entered, I want to really explain this well. I don't think you owe anybody the coming out that you're dating. I really don't. I would feel hurt if I was dating somebody for a long time and they didn't tell me because they didn't feel secure in the relationship. They hid that part of themselves from me. But I can also understand when you first start dating people not wanting to tell them something so serious unless you feel safe and like you can. They entered a TV show where like step 2 of dating is getting engaged, And she starts being very upset with him because he didn't tell her, even though they were engaged. I don't know how long they've known each other. I don't know how long they've talked. And says some stuff like, oh, you want to be with a man? Oh, how do I know if you even like me? And stormed out. Again, I'm not trying to condemn Diamond. I'm trying to condemn the show because the way they present it, it's like it is Carlton hiding facts about himself. It is him being dishonest. And do we really know if bi men like women? And it just came off so terrible to me. And then in this catch-up, I didn't rewatch the show or the reunion before I filmed this video because that would make me too professional, and I'm not. In the show, in the reunion, in this 2-year update, there's a meeting between Carlton and Lauren, who we'll talk about, kind of where he expresses that he feels very hurt because nobody from the show, except for her, seemingly, has remained his friend. He feels lost, he feels hurt, he feels disrespected, and he feels like there was a lot of not just people ignoring him, but a lot of biphobia presented by the show and by the other contestants, and he's screaming out, struggling. He feels like he's stranded in the ocean and nobody's there to help him. And I think Lauren was trying to be diplomatic because I think the show itself really likes to prop Lauren and Cameron up as like the it couple because they are, rightfully so. But she kept trying to bring up this point of like how would Diamond have felt? How did Diamond feel? And he's like, but how do I feel? Nobody cares about how I feel. It feels like nobody cares how I feel. And I felt I'm on his side, and I think it's really important to note that the show did not set up any couples that could be that like none of the couples that left and none of the dates that we saw were people who were queer, LGBTQ. Like nobody was going on dates with people of the same sex, which I thought was kind of weird. And the way that the show handled this Carlton narrative was really messed up, especially because Diamond features quite heavily in the reunion or this like 2-year update, and we're really supposed to feel like we're on her side. The show wants us to be on her side because then we go to her talking head pieces and she talks about how she felt blindsided and how, you know, she's still looking for love but can't find it. And I want to be able to insert clips here, but I don't know how to do that if they're not screen recorded, and I don't want to get, you know, flagged for something. So maybe I'll figure out how to do it, or maybe I'll just put links to clips in the description. I don't know. She's talking about how she felt blindsided by that, she felt wronged by that, and she's still looking for love, she's still looking for like a real man. And again, it all just reads so biphobic and honestly homophobic, to be honest with you. It's this is a really good like winter tea. It just rang quite hollow to me, and I didn't understand why the show wanted to do it. It doesn't even air a piece of Diamond maybe apologizing for her behavior and just trying to explain that she felt hurt, that Carlton didn't feel like he could reveal that to her earlier and she mishandled. There was none of that. No apology for it. In fact, the show was trying to make, as a viewer watching the show, it kind of made me feel like the show wanted Carlton to apologize for not telling Diamond earlier. But I cannot express this enough. The second step of dating on this show is getting engaged. It's not the same as if you got engaged now and you've been dating for 2 years and then you tell somebody something. I don't think it's the same, because it's not. Because it's, one, a social experiment TV show, and two, you cannot see the person until you propose to them. So what did you want? And that's really the whole storyline. I should have prefaced this before, but the show, the 2-year update is paired with kind of Lauren and Cameron, who are still married, and Amber and Barnett, who are still married, are throwing a 2-year anniversary party. Now, if they are or not of their own accord, or if the show approached them after its success, or maybe even in their initial contract there was like, we will be doing this, you have to do it. I don't know, but they're throwing a party, and so Carlton does not come to the party, but Diamond does, and her storyline is kind of like seemingly that she brings a guy that she has not been dating for particularly long to this reunion engagement party with all of these people that are her friends, and he ends up leaving the party early and she's pissed about it. But from what they show of the party and Diamond's interactions is like she's not talking to this man at all, and this is somebody that she's been dating a short period of time, if not this being like one of their first 5 dates. And he kind of leaves because he's like, yeah, I don't really want to be here. I don't know anybody. You're not interacting with me. You are not talking to me. You're not even introducing me to people. And this seems like a place where maybe you shouldn't have come with me because we aren't at this level yet, kind of deal. To which she has a meltdown, and everybody's like, he seems shady. He should have been here to support you. You should have just, people have different social staminas, but like, you know what? Like, he should have been here to support you. He should have been able to introduce himself to people. He should have been able to make his own friends. And again, it just seems like I'm not on her side. From what the show has showed, that this is a pretty new relationship. And those are always hard when you're introducing them to a lot of people. Plus the addition of cameras and a lot of drama going on around them. I don't feel like this man is in the wrong for being uncomfortable and wanting to leave. When I go somewhere with Aaron, we've been dating 3 years and we had a lot of the same friends in college. But when, I took him to meet my extended family for the first time, even though we had been dating like a year, even when I recently went to a wedding in June for my cousin, he has not met all my cousins. He has not met all their spouses. He's not met everybody. I tried to take the time to introduce him to people, to be with people, to make sure he has people he can be with. My sister's boyfriend, my mom, my dad, like people that he knows that he can kind of fall back on if I want to go be a little bit more social. And I make sure to check in just like he would. I just think it was kind of inconsiderate to do this. And then again, paint this man as the bad guy. I don't know what Diamond has over the show that they're like, we have to be on her side, because I just am not. And it's very frustrating, especially the like blatant biphobia and the blatant, like, I could just tell that the producer's trying to pull on my strings, my little puppeteer strings, to be on their side, which, and I cannot stress this enough, I was not. Okay, so here's the other thing. I don't want to seem like I'm critiquing individual people who are also not, they're like barely public figures, okay? This isn't like the president of the United States. This isn't like a celebrity. These are people who like got on a reality TV show that I think did way better than anybody thought it would. And I'm pretty sure these people don't have like publicists or anything. What I'm trying to critique is like how the show is trying to manipulate us as the audience, and also some harmful teachings that are coming out of this show. So I just want that to be clear. Please do not ever go like leave hate for these people on their Instagrams or anything like that. That's like not the point of this video. It's like, if you have thoughts, share them here in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts. As a viewer of the show, it seems like the show is telling me how I should be feeling. Obviously, it's a produced reality TV show, but I'm feeling the opposite. And I can talk about it on my YouTube channel. And that's what I'm doing. There are 2 couples that are honestly kind of boring. I guess I'll get them out of the way. Kelly, who is in Beachbody, and if you want to see some interesting facts about her, you can go ahead and check out Kiki's Chanel's video, who's like public figures that are in MLMs, because she talks about her there. Kelly and Kenny were 2 kind of nice people. They seemed pretty normal on the show, and they ended up not getting married because they just didn't feel like they were in that level of love. Fine with each other, to be honest with you. Neither one of them had many talking head pieces, and I believe Kenny is now engaged to another woman, and Kelly is still in Beachbody, and that seems to really be it. They weren't even like narrative pieces for other people to bounce off of in the show, so I'm not exactly sure if they just weren't that interesting. People didn't seem to be that invested with them originally the first time around. They seemed to be perfectly adult humans that honestly interacted at the party. So the next couple that unfortunately is kind of boring to talk about is the dream couple, which is Cameron and Lauren. Now, obviously things are edited on a TV show, but if you were going to tell me that there is one couple that would make it through the test of time, I would buy that it's Cameron and Lauren. They seem like people that are genuinely in love with each other and want to make it work. And any issues they may or may not have down the road, I don't think would come from the fact that they met on a reality TV show, but had more to do with how they handle problems individually, rather than the fact that like their whole life is publicized on this on these 2 years of their life. They are the people that I think the show puts there so that we can feel endeared again to the show. The show brought these two people together, and look how in love they are, and look how sweet they are. It's kind of the formula that I believe TLC has lost with 90 Day Fiancé. You know that the drama brings people in, so you would think a show packed full of couples that have a lot of drama would bring more people in. But because there's so much screaming and yelling and high stakes, to have no couple to offer reprise to that is really draining for a viewer. And Cameron and Lauren are the perfect people to, one, center the storyline around, because we want to hear what's up with them. They seem happy, they seem healthy, their families seem to like each other, and they feel normal. And so with the absurdity of the couples that I'm going to continue to talk about, they are the couple that are great to go back to, but they're not particularly interesting. They also have like really great charisma. I don't believe they see, again, if they did have any major issues, they're not willing to reveal it on national television or Netflix, which I think is good of them. And they seem to have a good camera presence where they can joke and talk, and they seem to have a good rapport. And everybody acts differently when they're on camera, so whether it's because they're nervous or they don't realize, or they're just so stressed about how the world is going to perceive them, I don't know. They seem to be people who excel being on camera, which makes sense for them to kind of, on some level, be the hosts of this party and ergo the host of the show. So I guess the next couple to talk about would be Jessica and Mark. So Jessica is kind of the girl who came out with all the memes, right? After the show, her drinking wine. I saw one that was pretty funny that was like the show villain, the actual villain. She kind of did not seem to have her life together on the show and seemed to be quite eager to be married. I'm going to talk about this a little bit as a woman who, as you get older and other people are taking other paths. I mentioned earlier in this video, being in your 20s is kind of like a whirlwind. People are taking different life paths, probably for the first time in a long time, and it's hard to feel 100% secure with the choices that you're making, because it's the first time you don't have a blueprint. And while you might want to be doing something and pursuing a dream, it can seem hard when other people are doing other things, especially when we've been socialized to feel a certain way for so long. I also think it's not until like your late teens, early 20s, you realize the concept of how young being 20 and 22 and 23 really are. When you're younger, those ages seem a lot more grown up than when you actually are them. And myself included, I had quite a hard time on my 25th birthday. It was in the middle of the pandemic. It was probably the first birthday I had that I couldn't see like any of my friends. It was the first time I actually wasn't surrounded by my friends on my birthday. My birthday's in early September, so in college we were always back in college, and while my boyfriend was here, it was probably one of my most lonely birthdays. And then on top of that, I just was feeling really, like, honestly, like I was having a quarter life crisis. I just saw some people from my high school get married, having kids, buying houses. And while I know on some level that I don't want these things right now for myself, I felt like there was a part of me that was supposed to want those things. And I just felt stuck. And I think that's something that a lot of us feel in our mid-20s and probably throughout a lot of life. It's hard to know what you want and what you don't want, especially when you feel like you're diverting from the path that has been set out for you. And there's nothing wrong with it. And I think it's honestly important to talk about, because it normalizes those feelings going forward. And the uncertainty of it all is really part of life. And that's great. I think Jessica is somebody who had been socialized to feel like she should be married by a certain age, and she was starting to feel a little bit desperate to fulfill somebody's destiny, if not her own. She got to the show, and I think she was kind of very much into Barnett, a familiar name, I know, and she ended up with Mark, who was about 10 years younger than her, which seemed to be a major plot line, and they ended up not getting married. And I think a lot of people felt like, oh, this is because she's actually still in love with Barnett. Because it seemed like Mark was pretty into her, and it definitely left kind of a taste in the mouth of a lot of viewers that she was still pining over somebody who did not want her. I think like before the wedding night, she tried to talk to Barnett about how he doesn't actually want to be with Amber, and he knows that, and she's trying to talk to him as a friend, and it was perceived poorly. I mean, I don't know how you could make that not be perceived poorly, because the show was kind of obsessed with this love triangle that was Barnett, Mark, and Jessica, and then Barnett, Jessica, and Amber. They like to play off of that, and lots of shows do. It makes sense that they would. So for Jessica to come back, also after receiving such public, I would say, like, backlash and making fun of, and just being the butt of the joke for like over a year, shows a level of strength that I don't think a lot of us could be capable of. So for that alone, kudos to her. She also came back, and you could tell she had seemed more calm. She apparently has moved to California, and she has a boyfriend out there, and she came back just for this reunion, kind of, I think, to make amends and close this chapter of her life, which I think honestly was pretty smart for her to do. The show, watching her this time around in these 3 episodes, I think has allowed her to atone for any of the sins she may or may not have committed in the first go around, at the very least in the public eye. Now, it is funny because Mark doesn't show up at all, and we find a little bit more out about that later. Mark does not appear in the show, which is weird because I kind of thought it was like a contractual agreement maybe to come to this party, but it obviously wasn't unless he was willing to breach the contract for it. Because it seemed weird to me that Jessica would fly across country. Honestly, it seemed weird to me that people who like were barely in the show would want to come. It really did. So I think the next couple to obviously talk about would be Amber and Barnett. So I think for me, they are the couple that I relate the least to. Amber famously in the show revealed that she had a mountain of student debt because she dropped out of ROTC, which is a program that if you commission into the Army afterwards, it pays for your college education, from my understanding. And she ended up not commissioning into the Army, and she also ended up not finishing her degree, which things happen. I'm not here to shame her, but it seemed like she had a fair amount of debt and also did not want to work, but had the ability to, which seemed rather odd to a lot of people on the show. And she seemed very much like somebody who maybe was going to college to get an MRS degree, but also didn't want to appear like other girls. And that's the thing that I will say the most about Amber, is she carries a I'm not like other girls vibe proudly on her sleeve, while Jessica is other girls and also likes that about herself, which is totally fine. And I think that's why they clash so much, which is why, of course, Barnett had to choose between the two of them. On the original series, there was about 3 or 4 episodes in the actual pods, and the remaining of the show was outside of it. And in that, we saw Barnett seem really into this girl, Elsie, which he supposedly dropped quite quickly to be into Jessica, and after Jessica, Amber. And there's always going to be tension between Amber and Jessica and Barnett because of, 1, that relationship in the pods, 2, during the show, the girls were all living together and the men were all living together, so they would talk about people in the pods. And I do recall that a bunch of people tried to warn Amber about Barnett because he was kind of like a playa, and she wasn't hearing any of it. And I think she had a very much a like I won mentality, like people are not prizes to be won, Amber, but okay. But yeah, Barnett, I would definitely say, from what was shown on the show, was misleading Elsie and Jessica, and for some level Amber. It did not seem for a long time if I was unsure as a viewer if he was going to go with Amber or Jessica. So we start catching up with Amber and Barnett, and we find out that Barnett sold his home to pay off all of Amber's student loans, and now they live in an apartment she has with a roommate. And it appears like the roommate might own the house in some level, on some capacity, and Amber lives there and Barnett lives there. But their major thing seems to be that Amber wants to have kids, and Barnett doesn't quite seem ready to have kids, and his major thing is the financial responsibility of having kids. And here's the thing I want to say. I agree with Barnett. Barnett doesn't seem quite ready to have kids yet, and Amber seems really ready. And in a conversation, and I will get a clip of this in here because I just, this conversation is actually when I had to stop like watching the show because it was so insane to me. Amber's having a conversation with Barnett's mom. And when she expresses the fact that why do they have to wait on Barnett's timeline to have children? And here's the first thing I will say. You should want your partner to be on par or like at least 90% positive they want to have kids. Kids are a forever commitment in a way that marriage is not. Kids are forever. You are responsible for another human being's not only like physical well-being, but their emotional and mental health as well. And it is not something to be taken lightly. And I honestly think too many people have kids because they think it's the thing that they're supposed to do, rather than having kids because they're ready and they're ready for the commitment it is to be a parent. And while I understand a bunch of people are going to say that you're never going to be ready, for what it actually ends up being, that's probably true. I do not have kids and I understand that, but you should at least think you're ready on some level, right? And if you're in a committed partnership and one party of those people doesn't seem quite ready yet, I think it's behoove of you to wait. Now, if this was something where it's like he didn't want kids, I don't know why you guys wouldn't have discussed that first, but they both want kids. Barnett doesn't seem ready. And again, the major thing he says he doesn't seem ready for is, one, they live in a home apartment thing with a roommate. And he said, I think one of the rudest things you can do if you live with roommates is have a kid. And that is absolutely true. It's one thing if you have children and somebody moves in with you. It's another thing if it's like your house and they live in the basement. It's another thing if you move in with people, you move into somebody else's house and then you have a kid and then you're just like, your roommates not have kids. It's not necessarily fair, and you should probably be looking to be more independent, I would think, if you want to have a big family, which Amber seemingly does. Then Amber's mom says something about him being the breadwinner, which I feel conflicted about, but it has been presented to us on the show before that Amber doesn't work. And if you are capable of working and just aren't working and also have kind of what seems like an expensive lifestyle, but also want kids, and the person who is earning money thinks that financially that's not something you could swing, I don't know why you wouldn't start working. Not to say that if you have money, you control, if you are the person making more money, you control the relationship, but certainly something with a huge financial investment like children, I would think that it bears a lot of weight in the decision. Just like if I was to say, I want to move into this luxury apartment and my partner said, well, I don't make enough to afford that. And I was like, well, I want it. And I would be willing to pay more than my half. That would be something we would have to talk about. So I think that's fair on some level. But then Barnett's mom goes in to talk about how in the Bible, men are the head of the household and women are subservient to the man. And then I was like, oh no. It made me feel really icky. And it just, part of me knows that, part of me just wonders what is getting edited out. I'm not trying to put this label onto Barnett, but I just have to wonder what's getting edited out for their edit and what other things maybe Barnett's family has said. But that really rubbed me like the wrong way. Amber also seems to have kind of like a boomer humor about her husband and how she is lucky that, you know, she hasn't killed him yet, and he hates that she doesn't pick up his shoes. And it just seems like her style of love language is shitting on her partner, which is like not something that I personally like. And like I said before, Amber carries a very much like a I'm not like other girls kind of mentality. And I don't know if she does that as a layer of like protection against herself, or also a way to project herself onto national television. That way she could say, oh, that's not really how I am. And it's obvious to me that her and Jessica were always going to butt heads, because Jessica kind of has a I am like other girls vibe, and I like that. And again, there's nothing wrong with being like other girls, and it's a really shitty mentality that we promote in women to pit themselves against each other. Because to be honest with you, what Jessica was trying to warn Amber about was that Barnett has said a lot of stuff to her, and seemingly Elsie too, And she just didn't know how much he could be trusted. Now, on some level, you have to let people be people and you have to let them go. They're married. You don't really have a say, but you knew Amber better than Barnett did at that resort in Mexico, so who cares? What really did it for me, before we talk about this final couple, is this interaction between Elsie and Amber at the party, where it's revealed to us that Elsie, who again was kind of a minor character on the show, she didn't make it out after the pods. She had what you could clarify as a fling with Barnett for a little bit and then kind of moved on. But it seems like Elsie also was hooking up with Mark after him and Jessica broke up, and was upset because while her and Mark were hooking up, he was also like hooking up with the woman who now is carrying his child. And Elsie was explaining at the party why she felt pretty hurt by this, because she was under the impression that they were exclusive. And when Amber comes up to talk to her, it really devolves into yelling. But essentially Amber says, why would you think you were exclusive if you never did it? You guys were dating. You weren't even talking. You weren't even exclusive. You weren't even this. You weren't that. And Elsie says very clearly, I told him that because it was COVID, I was not comfortable hooking up with him if he was hooking up with other people. And he told me he wasn't, which is a very clear iteration of what she said her boundaries are. And Amber doesn't even bat an eye, because apparently her and Mark are friends, and says something along the lines of, why would you believe that? Why do you think that that would be the truth? We all know men are liars. And it devolves into a lot of screaming where everybody is shocked that like Mark isn't there. Amber's not, because he's standing up for his pregnant girlfriend, Amber. And really what this fight boils down to, and honestly, I have a lot of issues with this. One, obviously the producers told her to go talk to Elsie, because I don't think she would have if she hadn't. But it's so bizarre to me to walk up to somebody and say, I don't think you deserve an apology because you're an adult. And Elsie's like, no, I do. Because I'm an adult and he's an adult, I deserve an apology. And Amber kind of buckles down and says, well, did he know that you guys were exclusive? And Elsie reiterates that she felt like she, at some level, had expressed that she felt that exclusivity was implied, because she said, I don't want you hooking up with other people, and he agreed to it because of COVID. Amber then really devolves into this kind of, you shouldn't trust men unless you're married, you shouldn't trust men if you're married, we have a ring, I have a ring, you're single, I have a ring, I have a ring. And it reads really gross to me. Honestly, I'm not trying to harp on Amber. I don't know if it's the editing or how she's playing herself on camera, but it reads really, really nasty to me. It doesn't read as somebody who is empathetic and willing to understand that people can do bad things and not be bad people. And that maybe, just maybe, her friend was wrong. Like, I don't know, but I also find this bizarre. Amber to me presents a lot of bizarre things in this world, but it's weird to me to live by the statement that you shouldn't trust men unless you're engaged to them. But once you're engaged and married to a man who you haven't trusted the entire time that you were together, now that he's locked in with a ring, you should trust him. What is the logic? And it is so old. It's weirdly like old-fashioned and so anti-feminist in a way that makes me, like I said, just really uncomfortable. And it's so bizarre to walk up to somebody at a party and say this to them. Later in the show, Jessica tries to give the gift she got for Barnett and Amber to Barnett, and Barnett tries to be polite, and then basically, in again a bizarre interaction, says, I can't, I'm not allowed to, walks away from her. And it's very weird. Now, I will say this. It's clear that Amber is uncomfortable with Jessica. I think not for wrong reasons, but I do think it reads kind of middle school, high school drama. You liked my boyfriend for a little bit. You tried to break us up, which is true, but you know, sometimes you got to do what you think is right. And clearly Jessica was wrong. And I think she was trying to make amends. Like I said, the way that she has played herself off in the show, it seemed like she has really matured and moved past what I would imagine is a very hard thing to move past, to come off as like a not all there wino lovesick 35-year-old. Doesn't seem like the moniker I want to wear around my neck. But she really came back and seem to be a lot more zen and a lot more aligned, and realize maybe her behavior was weird and make amends for it. And you have to admire somebody who's willing to do that, and also be willing to maybe have themselves look ridiculous on TV again. I think I steeped this tea too long. We later see this conversation with Amber and Barnett where he was like, I want to let you know Jessica tried to give me a gift and I told her I wasn't allowed to, and I left and I didn't take anything from her. And Amber just was like, yeah, don't take anything from her. We don't need anything from her in our life. We will never forgive her for what she did. And it just reads so angry. And it seems like so much more could be solved if they just talk to each other. But again, people heal differently. It really, again, rubbed me the wrong way of this Matt being like, I'm not allowed to. Not I feel as wronged as Amber does from this conversation. Just, I don't want to make Amber mad. Now, I saved the last couple for last. And that is Damien and G. Damien and G are a special case because they actually made it to the altar and said they weren't going to get married, and then they have seemingly been dating for the past 2 years. Their relationship has always been played by the show of this archetype of will they, won't they, on, off, hot, cold kind of relationship, kind of falling on the stereotype that G, as a Latina woman, would be more fiery. Their relationship is most famous for Their relationship is most famous for G kind of saying, you know, when you say after we have sex, it was the best sex of your life, remember how I don't return the compliment? That's kind of their famous quote, I guess I would say. So in this iteration of the show, we see that G and Damien have been still dating for 2 years. They haven't gotten married and they haven't moved in together, which isn't fine. You can do a relationship however works best for you. However, from what they had displayed as a couple prior to this, it doesn't seem like that would be the kind of relationship either of them would want. And it seems like they were both incredibly blasé about their entire relationship. Now, again, part of this could be because they felt the way they were represented on the show the first time around was maybe not fully representative of themselves, and they're trying to save face a little bit. I think it might be because they were kind of broken up. Now, I know that that seems like conspiracy theory, and obviously everything I say as far as like how I'm judging these people is like alleged, but it just, from what was presented to us on the show originally, they don't seem like people who could do this very casual, long-term relationship where it wasn't just they weren't living together, or they weren't engaged, or they weren't any of those things. Because again, you have to do what's best for you in your relationship. They both seemed so, again, blasé. G was doing a talking head where she was like, yeah, we haven't seen each other in like 2 weeks. And I was like, what are you talking about? Well, Pan 2, Francesca from Too Hot to Handle, which is another Netflix show, and Damien apparently are very good friends, and they get lunch, and he ends up inviting her to this anniversary party. Now, I want to make this clear. All of these couples should have the same anniversary if they had gotten married. And I think the only couple, so like Mark and Jessica didn't even see each other. Kenny and Kelly seemed to be in a good place where it kind of seemed like they both knew that they weren't going to get married. And now we have, you know, Carlton didn't even show up, and they didn't even make it to the altar. And now we have G and Damien. So while this isn't their anniversary party, it is the party where G said yes to marrying Damien and Damien said no. It's that anniversary for them, which is, I would imagine, an incredibly painful anniversary. And I was having this argument with my friend where it's like, it's not their anniversary party because it's an anniversary of something so terrible. It's got to be a pretty heavy day, I would imagine, for both of them, especially to see people that are still married from this experience and moving on with their lives on some level, and they are still just kind of like casually dating. It seemed like they were both seriously dating, but also very casually dating. It was very bizarre. So Damien invites Francesca to this party, which again seemed odd because to my knowledge, it seemed like she was the only person there that wasn't from the show or specifically somebody's date. that was from the show that wasn't on the show. Like if you didn't get married from the show, or you weren't dating somebody from the show, you could bring up +1. But if you were married from the show, that person had to be your +1. You know what I'm trying to say? Because obviously Damien and Gianna, or G, would have been going together, right? So he invites this girl, and he makes this comment that I thought was so funny. She was like, I tried to get my mom to come, but she wasn't even allowed. How did this girl get tickets? And I was like, producers. So they end up having a conversation, and Damien's like, so you guys can finally meet. And G's kind of like, go away. Has this conversation, and she's like, back the fuck off. Like, what are you doing? And this girl, Francesca's kind of like, well, I would never impede on your relationship. Like, that's not what I'm about, blah, blah, blah. And then she later tells Damien, I should not have been invited to this party and spoken to like that. And Damien says the words, that's on G. That's not on me, though. You can't be mad at me for that. Oh my God. And then she goes, you misrepresented how together you guys were. Because she seems to think that you guys are like 100% together, which is not what you told me. And she's like, I want to leave. I'm not comfortable here. Which, damn girl, way to respect your boundaries. Very proud of you. Feel very bad for you if you were really misrepresented what their relationship was. That's really unfair and very hurtful. And I think G should be more mad at Damien than she is at you. Damien, dude, fuck you, man. You brought this poor girl to this event that you knew was going to be drama, and you left her alone with your obviously hurt and angry girlfriend who said things, and then you told the girl you invited as your date that she can't be mad at you because you didn't say those things. You put her in that situation. You absolutely put her in this situation. You misrepresented your relationship with your current girlfriend, brought another person to this party, left her alone, and then told her she couldn't be upset at you. How dare you? And then you and G had like a fight, and then the show kind of ended, and I felt really bad. I honestly feel bad for so many people involved in the show. The show did end there. I'm sorry. There was like cute speeches and all the stuff that I was setting up, the video camera that I was setting up. And I just feel bad for everybody involved. And honestly, I didn't mean to just like summarize everything for you and then talk at you. I felt like I made some good points here. I just feel like the reunion has kind of put a nasty taste in my mouth about what the show was. Because I honestly don't like anybody now. I feel like Jessica got her redemption story. I feel like Amber and Barnett have like a weird relationship that is maybe something that works for them, but not something that I want in many of my relationships. Makes me feel like maybe there is some contractual agreement to stay together for some reason, like you might get something from it. And I just don't think this is going to have the same reaction for everybody that the original series had. And I just think this show is a crash course in something that I think is kind of important. The show represents itself as this social experiment originally to take away any like appearance-based attraction to people and therefore any kind of like sexual energy. Shows us kind of what I imagine a lot of people like Christian people's wet dreams are, where it's kind of like, oh my God, look at these people who fell in love without any physical interaction. And I just feel like physical intimacy is one, not just sex. It's a major part of a lot of relationships to feel safe, to feel secure, and it can help lead to more emotional intimacy because that part of the relationship was taken away until you could agree to be married. And then to judge couples that are engaged but aren't really engaged because they for a period of time existed in a world where the only thing you could be was in a pod or engaged is kind of weird. And it shows that some people, I think, were quite ready to settle down and be married and had really great communication skills and met people that were looking for the same things that they were. Lauren and Cameron, and honestly, Amber and Barnett, they seem while a relationship that I don't want to exemplify, they seem somewhat happy. And while I do think there are some toxic traits happening there, I saw 3 hours of what I assume is at least 72 hours worth of just footage edited together. There are people in my life that I never want to have to see again. I never want to interact with, and they caused a lot of damage. And I'm sure I would have behaved poorly at an engagement party for myself if they came and gave a gift to Aaron. I can't wrap myself being in that scenario, but there are people that I think absolutely bring out the worst in me, and that could just be who Jessica is for Amber. And while I don't love it, and I can judge it as much as I want, I don't have to live with what I'm sure Amber dealt with, which is a lot of backlash on social media and the internet. I'm sure not to the extent that Jessica got, just because the show really painted Jessica as the villain. But I imagine that it's a sore spot for her in a way that I can never imagine. What I have a more objection to is her wanting to like kind of just have a kid right now. And also her attack of LC feeling hurt about how Mark hurt her. It really rubbed me the wrong way, and I don't know if it's editing, I don't know if it's how she wants to come off for the show, but it's clear to me that there were people there that were just ready to be together and ready to be married, and that those people were a success. But if we looked at this as a perspective of like, does this do anything to find love? I would say not. About 30 men and women came together, and only 4 of them have remained, well, 2 and 2. So yeah, only 4 people have stayed together, and 2 people are on and off again on the rocks. It doesn't even seem like other people from the show got together like after the pods. We barely get to see anybody. The only other people from outside the pods that we get to interact with are LC, who didn't have, for some portion of it's a major storyline, and Rory, who I had forgotten about but then remembered he was kind of like the therapist on the guy side. As far as like a final thoughts thing, it kind of felt hollow to the magic that the original series brought to us. I think part of that is because we weren't in the middle of a crazy uncertain time that nobody knew how to navigate, and so people weren't kind of forced to dive into this escapism. I think also the show didn't understand what people really responded to the most, and they've packed it full with a lot of drama that I just don't know why you want to present that to people. I don't know why you want to make us feel like we should be on the side of people who are biphobic. I don't know why you should make us feel like we should aim to just like have kids. I don't know why we should sit here and demonize Jessica and LC for feeling hurt and wanting to make amends. And I don't know why they put it out like this. And maybe I'm angry and watching the show and getting something very different about it. I don't know why they put Francesca in that situation in the first place, or Gianna really either, because while I don't agree with the things she said to Francesca, I think it was clear that she felt hurt and she was really mad at Damien. And I don't know why he gets to play dumb. It seems like the people who had the most to apologize for in the show didn't need to. It felt like Mark owed somebody an explanation about something or another. It seemed like Damien owes G and Francesca genuine apologies, and it seems like Barnett should maybe just take the Tiffany champagne glasses from Jessica, because this was an anniversary party, right? Other people brought them presents, right? I don't know. Although we got Sexy Beast going, so maybe there's that. Well, yeah, which is a weird show, but it's kind of fun, kind of mindless. I just want to say, everybody, thank you for watching. I hope